Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's Dr. Janice Hooker Fortman with Relationship Matters TV. Hope everyone is having a beautiful, wherever you are, whenever you are, however you are. Well, I had gotten off of my soapbox and now I'm back on it. And you know why? Because of the numbers here in the United States of America as far as COVID is concerned. Now they're talking about a surge in the fall. Well, first they said a surge in the summer. Now they put it back to a surge in the fall. Now, why is there a surge? There's a surge because you people out there won't wear your mask. COVID is not over, and I know we're tired. I'm tired. I would like to hug somebody. I want to go out to restaurants. I love concerts. I don't mind crowds. I like crowds. But I wear my mask. And why do I wear it? I wear it just in case. Just in case I have it and don't know it, but I want to protect the people around me. Now, we've reached 1 million people that have had or have contracted AIDS. And today, they had a special on about orphans, and there are 250,000 children who are orphaned because of AIDS. And a family was because the mom, who had 4 kids, was just afraid of the vaccine. So get your vaccine. And once you get your vaccine, get your booster. And if you don't do any of that, please wear your mask, because I really want to get off of my soapbox. I don't like it up here. Now, before I bring the guest on today, I want to make an announcement. I should have a drum roll, and I don't have a drum roll, but I have it. I'm going to show you. Hi, this is me. I have been chosen. I won. I am now Miss Senior Illinois America. Wait. Yes, that is me. And so since I live in Illinois, I am Miss Senior Illinois America. And in September, I go to Pennsylvania and I compete against other senior women who are 60 and over. and who are from all the different states in America. So I want you all to send up some good vibes. It's run just like Miss America and Miss Universe. And the way you support me is just to send me some good vibes and just put it out there in the universe that I win and that I will be Miss Senior America. That's it. That's all about me. Okay. So now let's talk about my guest for today. His name is Takuan Amaru. I am so excited about having him here. He's the son of a black Native American and a Japanese woman from the countryside in Kyoto, Japan. Takuan was placed in multicultural settings where he received many life lessons. He's an author, a teacher, a mental health specialist, former columnist for the Examiner magazine, which is in Philadelphia, and he has written over 100 articles about pop and culture music, ancient spirituality, and philosophy. He now lives in, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Nagoya, Japan. I want you to meet him. When I grow up, I want to be just like him. And let's see, he's written over 100 articles. I got a long way to go. Welcome, Takuan Amaru. How are you?
Thank you very much for having me, Dr. Jen. I'm doing absolutely wonderful. How about yourself?
I am doing great. I'm doing great. It's just a pleasure to have you on. We met in the metaverse.
Yeah, well, we kind of met, right? Yeah, we kind of met, right? Yeah, we in the metaverse and through our avatars.
Through our avatars. Mm-hmm. But now I see him in person. So, Takuan, I have so much to talk about with you. And what I wanted to focus on was you and the way your life, how you grew up. And you have a trilogy, and your trilogy, so I want to make sure I pronounce it correctly. Okay. The trilogy is Gaikokujin. Gaikokujin. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, so before we really talk about your trilogy, which is really your life story, yes. What does Gaikokujin mean?
Okay, and thank you very much for the question. And I also want to shout out Sister Asada Kirkland on the Chicago Soulful Book Fair. That's what we were talking about, the avatars. But the book Gaikokujin is a trilogy, and it covers my life from my childhood till I'm 21. So many different crazy things happened. And I make the claim that I use the term melanin rich. And I think because of the peculiar nature of the society we live in, no matter where you live, for us right now to sit here and be in our homes or wherever you are, if you're not, I'm just going to be honest, if you're not crazy, if you're not incarcerated or you haven't been killed or anything, there's been a series of miracles that have led you to this place. I think the details of mine are just kind of funny or a little bit more extreme than most, so I put it on paper. But when you read this, hopefully you will see like, hey, that reminds me of so-and-so, and that reminds me of such and such, because the stories there's really no new stories. Okay. But as far as Gaikokujin, the word, if you say Gaikokujin to a Japanese person, they will tell you that it means foreigner or like foreign national. Okay. So that's the phonetics of hearing it, right? But I have kind of coined a word because I don't have if you see the three actually I have a book. If you see the three kanji, right? So we have Gai Koku Jin. So this means outside, this means black, and this means person. But usually when you see the word Gai Koku Jin, this middle symbol, I'm trying to see myself in the reflection, would not be black, it would be country. However, the sound is the same, koku, right? So I've kind of coined a word. If you say to a Japanese person just off riff, they'll be, oh, that means foreigner. But if you show them this, then they, oh, okay, they'll know it's not, it's a coined word, but they'll instantly get the meaning. So I'm trying to incorporate foreigner and black person kind of together.
Oh, okay. So I'm looking at your name and I'm looking at Afro-Asiatic.
Mm-hmm.
You coined that? Because that's the first time I've seen that.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Well, Afro-Asiatic, if you again, if you Google it, they'll tell you about a ancient set of like languages, right? Like Amharic, and there's a bunch of languages that go in there. I'm kind of going on that, but I've joined Afro and put it together. And originally, I'm trying to show really the original human, right? That we, coming out of the cradle of Africa and spanning around the world. And but we at the original, at our maybe our original level, we lived differently than we do now before Western society set in. So I'm really trying to have a kind of a broad symbol that, something that symbolizes that. But originally when I made Afro-Asiatic, it was for a hip hop group that we had in Japan. A brother named James Elmore, who ironically lives in Chicago. He's a Chicago native. Shout out to him. And he's in Chi right now. And he and I, we formed a group, and we had a large group of like Brazilian DJs and Japanese MCs and different people who would kind of be in the Afro-Asiatic family. And we got pretty popular, television, radio, and the mayor of Hamamatsu, where we live, he gave us the key to the city and really boosted our popularity. So that's the original. That's how it originally became, the logo and everything.
Oh, okay. So let's dive into your first book, the first part of your book, because it really starts talking about it. It gives us your history. As a matter of fact, I think the whole trilogy is really about you, how you grew up, your journey to where you are now, your relationships. So
Yes.
let's start from the beginning, where you were born.
Okay. Kind of a strange story as everything. I actually was born in the U.S. But my sister and we have an adopted brother. They were born in Japan, right? So my family lived in Japan. My father, who is Black American from Alabama, he wanted one of his kids to be born in the U.S. So according to the story, they actually had my mother when she was about to give birth. I don't know how close it was exactly, but had them fly me to, of all places, Topeka, Kansas, and I was born there. And then, as soon as she could get back, we came back to Japan. So my family kind of started in Japan. And for years, I thought Topeka was a city in Japan when I was a small kid, so, technically I was born in the US, but the story and I guess my ideology and the way I was brought up begins in Japan. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, that does answer my question. So just kind of go into, I read some of your, well, I read all of your bio and went on your page and everything. And tell us about your mom and how you grew up. Actually, let's talk about the first book in your trilogy.
Okay, thank
So
you.
start where you want to start.
Okay, and this is the book that I just held up. It's the green one. Like this cover is all the same. But yeah. Okay, so the green book. This basically covers when I a child, from a child to high school, through my high school years. And ironically, I didn't want to write this book. because most of the things I wanted to write, it was really when I went into the military. I went into the army, and I was a very lost kid, like a lot of young black youth are. I was getting all the wrong messages, and doing all the wrong things. I wanted to be a tough guy, and you start hearing either you're going to be a rapper, a basketball player, or somebody on the street, and so yeah, it's so many things from going into the military, kind of with that attitude of trying to get over and then becoming and really just getting out of that and really having to learn the hard way without getting killed or incarcerated. That right there is so many miracles that even when it was happening, I was like, I gotta write something. This has to be documented. So those were the stories I wanted to write without ruining them. But after I finished them, my editor came and said, well, you have to write the story of how you grew up, because nobody will understand it. Because I kept giving him backstories while he was editing. And he was like, well, I understand you now, but no one's going to understand it. So writing the first book was very painful for me. And, it was very embarrassing in many respects. Right. But it starts out as me, really coming to the US, and we moved a lot of places, but I put everything kind of in one area just to, simplify it. And so everybody could understand it. And it's basically my family, Black Japanese were moving from the military base on into a civilian neighborhood. And first we moved into like white neighborhoods, right? And, just the difference between like we knew white people on the base, but many of them were mixed. What we didn't know was the base we were at, McGuire Air Force Base, which is in South Jersey, was at the time post Vietnam War. It was designated for mixed race couples, and I found this out way later. So like all my friends were mixed, right? So although I knew some white people, they were usually like from Germany or something, and they would be married to an American, right? It'd be a woman that was married to an American, let's say. But when we moved off the base, and we started seeing, how this society really, really functions, and just the alienation, I realized quickly it was black versus white. No matter what your color was, no matter what you were coming from, you were immersed in this, and you had to learn this game.
Wow. I never heard of that a base would be specifically for mixed race. That's just
Yeah, there were. It wasn't the only one. I don't want to misquote, but yeah, I got the information, because I'm ex-military, speaking to people, and they told me, and it made sense once they said it. Think about just civil rights, 1965, and we're talking about like 70s here.
okay.
So they're really, really, what are we going to do? How are we going to let this, the mixing occur? So they had to do it in certain experimental locations, right?
Wow.
So they concentrated, in certain areas. So yeah, like all my friends were mixed. Yeah.
Okay. So how difficult was it when you had to transition from, let's say, a mixed environment to a different environment, to I would imagine an all white environment?
Oh, it was crazy. It was traumatic, right? Kids go through different levels of trauma, right? Growing up is really that, but there's positive trauma and then there's negative, right? So I would say most of it was positive, but there was some really crazy things, especially and also coming from the mentality of the East to the West. And nobody is giving us any counseling. Nobody talks about it. Like people do it a lot more now.
Mm-hmm.
Like even I do it when I have lessons where I'm talking to families who are going to go and they're going to live in the United States, and I'm dealing with the children, and they're really happy because I tell them, this is going to be strange, right, for you. But people have no idea what it's like. It's not just the language barrier, but it's the culture, it's the ethics. And so, you learn all kinds of things. In many cases in America, you learn it the hard way, right? You learn it by being at the short end of the stick, right? So, yes, but on the white end of it, like when we first moved, the first couple areas we moved, it was all white. And then we moved to one area called Willingboro, and then it was white when we got there, and then it became black, right?
Okay.
That's what I say. I think
You
white
brought the
flight.
you brought the black.
And
So,
as a child, when you're 3 or 4 months seems like what would be years for us now, right? So
yeah.
when I was as a child, I didn't think it was us. I thought it was like when this Filipino family moved in. Then I realized we'd only been living there for a couple months, right? you know, and yeah. So and then the climate changed, and with it, and this is a big theme of book one. I had to learn how to quote unquote be black, right? It was strange when it moved from white to black. The biggest phenomena was the TV series Roots,
Oh,
and many of us recall seeing Roots for the first time. I don't know how, depending on what your age was, but I was in elementary school, and everybody was watching, and I wasn't allowed to stay up that late. Like my parents were strict, right? And
okay.
then once everybody, we came back, everybody's watching this except us, and so we were already kind of alienated, right? So they were okay, you can stay up and watch it. That was one of the very few negotiations my sister and I won. And but I remember this was really, really big because after Roots, every time I saw white people, they were getting beat up by black people
Oh,
for about 2 or 3 years. It seemed like I literally, when I was in middle school, I used to literally look around my homeroom and see white guys that I knew, and a lot of them I was friends with. I used to wonder, like, how did you get to school today? Because the white dudes I saw were being harassed. Like your Roots really had a traumatic effect on me, on the people around me in South Jersey and the Philadelphia area. I don't know how it went down with you, but just this knowledge of slavery and everything like that.
so was this the first time that you had learned about, slavery and all was through
Oh, of
Ruth?
course, of
Okay.
course, of course. Yeah. Like I said, when I was coming into this, on the base, there are black kids, but everybody is the military, right?
Right.
The code is military. Everybody's kind of the same, right? So that's what uniform means, right? So when you come off and you start going into the hood, right, and you start getting this crash course, and they're all looking at me like, you ain't black, you ain't black, and they would just say, kids are kids, right? So
Right.
they're gonna tell you like, no, you got to lose the the sneaker. You're gonna have to change this up here, B, if you're gonna hang out, and so a lot of it was the dozens, and but yeah, just this thing. And a big thing was, like, I used to play baseball, and I was I was a very accomplished baseball player because my neighbor, he was very, very good at baseball, and I used to play with him. He used to make me play. He was 3 years older than me, and he was like the best in his grade. So when I first started playing Little League, I was way better than everyone. Like people were checking my age. Is he, how old is he? And because I had been playing with these all-stars that were just killing me, and but it came to my attention from my friend Eric. I call him E in the book. That's a white sport, B. So you gonna have switch it up to basketball, football, and once that came to my knowledge, I dropped the baseball. I dropped it and picked up a basketball,
Okay.
just to show you how important, like, just fitting in, getting along. And I didn't know it back then, but for me, sports was a social vehicle.
Okay.
I never wanted to be a pro. I'm trying to get along. I'm trying to survive here. I'm trying to fit in, and I realized, I can play sports, and that gets, respect
Right.
around here.
Right.
Okay, well, let's enhance this,
Wow. So now, so that's with you in the green book.
Right.
And so the next book is the black book.
Yes.
So tell us about that part of your life as far as the black. Now, was it easier to write the second book in your trilogy?
Oh yes, because that was from that point. That's where I wanted to write. When I envisioned this, I was like, I have to write about, because basically it was a story about my time in the army. It's very, very unorthodox. It's not, some kind of soldier story. It's not American patriotic story. It's not a bashing America or anything like that either. But it's just I think a miraculous story of just someone who, I was trying to do the right thing, but I was getting the wrong messages from lack of guidance growing up. And it was like, this is what was created. But for some reason, spirit found it necessary to let me learn these things and just miss, miss danger and destruction. And again, I met so many people along my journey who fit into this. And then some of them would go too far, and then they would become incarcerated, or something bad would happen to them. But these were like the lessons that I had to learn because I didn't get it, and maybe in a more conventional manner. It's kind of like, I remember one of my friend's grandmothers saying, she was like looking at us, and she knew we was up to no good, but we good boys though, but she's looking at, she said, hey, you can learn this here, right here from me, or you can go out here and learn it from this white man. And we're looking at her like, well, what's she talking about? But we're walking and thinking about this, and just these kind of small things would make us change our decisions in many cases. And if you black in the hood, you can just go to the corner store and get, for your grandma to buy something and get wrapped up in something, right? This is not an uncommon story. So now the flip side also occurs. I was a kid who's trying to learn, like, hey, I want to get along, and doing a lot of negative things. Some of it was could have gotten me locked up again, and nothing was happening. Like I was getting, not getting away, because getting away would indicate like I'm profiting. You know what I'm saying? Like one instance was one time, we were doing a whole lot of bad things. A lot of my friends started selling drugs, and we went into Camden and started trying to actually do this. And here I'm participating in this, and this is a big, dangerous thing. And it was a friend of mine, a friend of my father's, my parents, and they were black and Japanese. The father was black and the mother was Japanese, and I used to consider them my uncle and aunt. And the woman, they used to move wherever we moved, because she was the only Japanese woman that she knew my mother. They were very close. Okay. Anyway, the man who's black, the husband, his nephew came to live with them for a while. He got out of the army. He was like 25. He was older than me. I'm 16. 15, so I looked up to him immediately. He had turntables. He had his own car, and so he invited me to a baseball game. I didn't, and this is way after I wasn't watching baseball anymore. But this is when Dwight Gooden was playing, and so I was like, I didn't want to go, but I wanted to hang out with him, so I just went to this baseball game. That day, everybody who all these guys I was dealing with, I didn't really know, they all got busted. The police came and rounded everybody up. So that I don't know anything about this. This is before internet. This is the 80s, right? So this is before internet. There's no way for me to find this out. And these are guys who don't live in my neighborhood. So I come home, and I'm making this long trip to Camden just to do this dirt. And I go to Camden the next day, and everybody's looking at me real funny. And they're like, why are you here? And I'm like, what do you mean, why am I here? And I'm thinking they're trying to challenge me or something. I'm in this, immature, try to be tough stage. And so they immediately just assumed I snitched.
Oh, because you're the only one left.
Yeah, I'm the only one. I'm here and no one else is here. And your excuse is you went to a baseball game. And everyone's looking at me kind of funny. And, it didn't take me that long. I was like, maybe I need to leave. And I actually got chased out of there.
Really?
Yeah. So that was the end of my, my street entrepreneurism. So it wasn't like I made the right decision. That's what I'm trying to say.
I got you.
I was trying to make the wrong decision. But spirit was like, no, get your amateur, you don't belong here. You know what I'm saying? So it's stuff like this and and then getting away. Oh, these people don't like me. Oh, maybe I should stay away from them. Like it was dangerous. So and it was so. I mean, stuff like, and I didn't even write that one in the book.
Okay.
Just to show you that that one's not even in the book. It was just so many of these stories.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. Wow.
but
Wow.
but
But
book
did
two
they?
is when I actually enter the army. It actually starts from the day and leave the end of book one. Not a spoiler. I mean, it really climaxes to a point where my father and I can't live under the same roof. And my father, I wouldn't describe him as I mean, he was a Vietnam vet, and then everything else that comes with being black and trying to raise a hard-headed son in America, I guess you could say. But he had a lot of pressure, a lot of strain. I wasn't. I'm not a physically abused child. That honor went to my dog, and that was traumatizing to me. I write about all this in the book. But my father had a lot of post-traumatic stress, and was it an abusive situation? Yes, but I don't look at my father as being abusive. I look at him. What I learned from my father more than anything was the strength, because I
Okay.
always derived strength from him. Because and I say this in the book, especially after that Roots thing. My father was from Alabama. I saw my father literally go and just scare white men who said some racial epithet toward me. And I
Mm-hmm.
learned early on, oh, anybody say anything. And my father was in Vietnam and Korea. He was a vet. He felt entitled, like, no, I earned this. And anyone said anything kind of crazy. And I witnessed on at least 3 occasions my father went and set the record straight. And that,
Okay.
more than anything else, really set a precedent in me of strength. Because not only me, everybody in the neighborhood was scared of my father.
Okay.
Right? Right. It wasn't just me. I was like, oh, I'm not a punk here. It's like, yeah, he goes out and he carries a big stick here, But
Let me ask you, how did all of this affect your mother? I read something about your mother and that she was descended from samurais.
yes. Yes.
So how did living in America, having a mixed race child married to a black man, how did all of that affect her?
If you watched my mother, you would think there was no effect. That's part of the Japanese being reserved. I've only seen my mother look frantic like once. She's all just reserved and just steely almost. My mother, because she married out of, not only, and I write this in the book, I specify this, it was because people think it's because he was black. Um, I'm not going to say that didn't contribute to it, but my mother is from before the war. Right? She was a little girl during World War II. So she was looked at as like one of the biggest traitors, right? She went with the conquerors,
Yeah.
right? So she was literally thrown out of the family, right? She was cast out of the family, like out of records, everything, you know. So she was in both feet. Like there was no, like, like when you see these
No
mixed race
going back.
people, right? It's usually mixed race people in today's conversation with the FBA and all, and they kind of have both. No, my mother was in. There was nothing go back to. There was nobody, nothing. But it was strange. My mother never really became American. She was just a Japanese woman who lived in Japan. Like when I meet other Japanese women in Japan, other people, I'm like, yeah, she's kind of American. My mother, her English never got good.
Okay.
She could understand English fluently, but a lot of my friends would be like, man, I didn't know you could speak Japanese. I'm like, my mother was speaking English, B. They're like, oh, yeah, she was speaking English. So and all of her circle, she only dealt with, I've only seen her with Japanese people in America. I never saw her with any black, white, anybody. The
Wow.
exception might be a couple Filipino women, only because of we lived in the Philippines, and number one, we had a Philippine neighbor in the States, and then one of our friends, my father's friends in the military, one of his wives was Filipino, and I didn't know that for years, right?
Really?
Yeah, because we're kids, we ain't trying to hang around with the adults, right? So when they're
Right.
all speaking, if my parents, they all speak English. And then normally, then, when they break off, then the women would start speaking Japanese, right? But by
Okay.
that time, the kids were long gone. And it was like
Okay.
years later, going to get something to eat. And I'm like, why are they speaking English to each other, And I'm like, oh, she's not Japanese. And I started looking at her. Yeah, she doesn't even look Japanese. And this is like maybe years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Takuan, I'm going to take a little break, and then when we come back, I want to tell us all about the third book in your
Okay.
trilogy. All right.
Sounds great.
So we will be right back after just a few messages. And I am so happy that your relationship with your daughter has improved. All right, welcome back. We are here with Takuan Amaru, and we are talking about his trilogy, all about his life. So, Takuan, let's talk about the last book, the purple one, and why did you choose? This just came to my mind to ask you this. You chose the different background covers for your book. So that's green, black, and purple. So first, tell us all about purple, and then tell us about why you chose the colors. Or you can even vice versa. You can talk about the colors first, whichever.
Okay. Well, thank you. Well, first, I failed to mention this before. The first book is called Pursuing, what's called, Hip Hop, Race, and Pursuing the American Dream. Right. So that's when I'm lost. I'm going as a child, just trying to figure things out. That's the green book. And I chose green because I'm playing on the chakra system, right? The chakra colors. So green is the heart chakra. And what I was looking for there really was love. I was trying to learn to love really myself, really looking for the real essence of love, not necessarily falling in love, but I think I do that with a couple, young ladies, first loves and stuff like that. And, you really can't love until you learn to love yourself, right? I don't want to sound cliche, but the second book, and that's The Making of a Soldier. Again, that's when I entered into the military, and I chose black because it was the unknown, right? And this is kind of when I was lost. And then black also is the color of, it can be the unknown, it can be confusion, but it can also be strength, right? You think about the color of judges, any official umpires in sports, right? They always wear black, right? Because they're showing the authority. So becoming a soldier, becoming a man, I was learning how to, the qualities that are going to be a deal breaker if you don't know how to do these: integrity, keeping your word, stuff like that, things that the military does teach you. And then the third book, which is called Quest for Christ Consciousness, I chose purple, again, going back to the chakra colors. So purple is when you're reaching, the summit, that's when you're reaching that consciousness above the pineal, right? Getting to the highest level, the seventh chakra. And so that is what is symbolized by Christ consciousness. During the second book, when you go into the military, in the Army, especially, I was a paratrooper for a time. And so you start really thinking about your mortality in a way that maybe normal people don't. And not only that, I was in a deep state of depression. Again, I was confused. So I started going to church. Now, mind you, I never went to church as a child. My mother was Buddhist. My father was highly unreligious. And so I was seeking God, right? So and also, again, when you have a job where you're jumping in places in the dark, you don't know what's going to happen. You think about, what's next. So I entered into a church, but really what I did was, there was two young men who were a little older than me. They used to walk around and witness. And these guys, they were always impeccably dressed, but one guy was from Detroit. One guy was from the Fort Worth area. And so they were from around the way. So they knew how to talk that talk, but they were very, very intelligent, very articulate. I'd never seen guys like this before. And maybe outside of like the Nation of Islam or something like that. Anyway, when I really hit rock bottom, it's a series of events, I seeked them out because I saw them doing things or just behaving in a way that, showing power in a way that they weren't criminals, they weren't athletes, but they walked around and people respected them. So as a young man, that's what I was seeking. So I went to get in a relationship with them, and they were members of this church. So I entered this church, and it really, really goes well for a while. I really, really learned a lot about, the Bible, my relationship with Christ, and things. I really kick out a lot of the negative habits that I have. But as it goes on, some things start happening between the pastor. The pastor started coming at me for tithing, and different pressures started happening. I ended up leaving the church. And that in itself is a story. Not to downplay anything about church. This is just this particular situation. All of this happens during the second and third books. The third book, which is called, again, Quest for Christ Consciousness, begins when I'm actually entering the church. And this is when I'm in a very, very depressed state. I really thought, I didn't know if I could live for like another week. I was just so depressed. And these two young men really take me in and become my older brothers. And again, a series, what happens during that to bring it to a climax and for me to end up leaving. But that's the end of the book ends with me going into being accepted into Rutgers University, and a series of events that really led to that, because, I had to, it was just strange because I had to get out early, and I was trying to play football. And so I had to go up there and actually get in the university and be on the football team, not be a candidate as a walk-on. And Christ Consciousness told me, no, it's going to happen. Don't worry about it. And at this time, things were rolling. Like I had you could say the Midas touch. And everyone's like, that's impossible. Nobody knows you. The coach never saw you. But anyway, series of events happen. I go to this college and I get accepted on a handshake by the dean. and the coach handshake accepts me on the team, and I come back and everyone's looking at me like I'm crazy, you know. And that's how the book basically ends. But it shows this escalation of a kid who was, again, looking for all the right things to do, doing everything the wrong way. And then, like Mr. Magoo, kind of got pushed onto the right path. And then, like, once a kid, gets the right resources, then we know what to do. But a lot of kids that they deem as bad or negative, they throw them into the juvenile delinquent pile. But this, if they had resources, if they just could see a source of light that seemed viable, nobody chooses negativity on its own. That's what I'm trying to say,
Okay.
and that's a real message, especially for the young people.
Wow. Wow. So um now all of this that you're talking about happened in the United States.
Yes.
So why why and when did you decide to live in Japan?
Well, again, going back, my mother is Japanese, and it was strange. I'm the youngest, so I think I always had a nostalgia with Japan because everyone would talk about Japan like the old country, and I remembered the least, about it. But I always just felt like I was being called back, like that was just in the cards for me, and I always talked about it since I was a child. So I didn't really choose Japan. Japan chose me. Like, even when I do my interviews, people ask me, like, most, quote unquote foreigners, they like anime, or they like video games, or they like something, they want to study the language, and all of that is great. But I don't like anything about Japan. Like, I'm Japanese is the reason I came back. It was really more or less more like why I ended up leaving the United States at the time, doing the research I was doing and stuff. And I really, really was just dismayed by the peculiar system we were under. And at the time, I was under the foolish impression that I could escape the long arm of white supremacy somehow.
Okay.
And
Okay.
yeah, I admit it. Please don't shoot me down. I've learned. And but when I got here on the ground, and then, yeah, just seeing, like, getting where you fit in, because my plan was to return. I was going to go to law school. I had I had it set up pretty much to go to law school, and that time just never came. Right, it just never came, and I realized I really wanted to go into my creative energies and become a writer. I didn't train to become a writer, so I had to go, seek editors and seek training programs that I could get paid pennies to get
Yeah.
editors to actually, critique my work. So instead of paying, for tuition, I would just get critique and get paid pennies. Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you are Afro-Asiatic. How are you treated in Japan?
Great question. Well, Japanese, by and large, there's two kinds of people. And in my nonfiction book, 21st Century Japan Decoded, I go in depth in this if you want to know how Japan is on the ground socially or in the society. There's two kinds of people in Japan. There are Japanese people and other, right? So, and other is if you're mixed, anything, but there's a two-way sword with that, because Japanese people also have a code that they and I call it the Yamato code. Yamato being an ancient name of Japan. And if you follow the code, and following the code also is not just your actions and behavior, but it's also kind of your frequency and vibration. And if you can align yourself to it, every Japanese person is required to treat you like a Japanese person. It's kind of strange. They might not think anything. I mean, they think that person's not Japanese, whatever. But it's going to almost lock them up and make them treat you in a certain way. So to answer your question more directly, I've really, again, the book, 21st Century Japan Decoded, I talk about being able to navigate through the society. So I think, when Japanese see me, I register, of course, as foreigner, right? But then when they start to interact with me, because of, just knowledge of the code and being able to adjust, it starts becoming kind of skewed, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not, right?
Okay. That's very interesting. So no matter, I always think that no matter where you go, the first thing in other countries, the first thing they see is your color, black.
Mm-hmm.
That's first. But what you're saying in Japan, if you're not Japanese, you can be other and be white. Is that
Um.
correct?
Okay. I don't know if I quite understood your question. The color thing is true. You can't get away from that, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But nowadays, there are a lot of kids who have grown up in Japan, right, who are black, right? They come from African countries. Some of them are mixed. Some of them are not. And so, once you see them, the way they move, the way you can say, oh, they're Japanese, right? And so, yeah, when Japanese people even see them, they look foreigner, but as soon as they start to interact, like some of them don't speak English, for example. So you have to speak Japanese to them, right? And so they don't know what I am at a certain point, right?
Right. When they first see you, they don't know.
No, when they first see me, clearly they it put me in the
Yeah,
foreigner
right.
bin, right? But
Right.
foreigner is white, black, Arab, even Chinese people to Japanese people are foreign, right? And so it's just how much, because again, to them, they have the thing that they're the center of the universe, which is
Oh,
really how people kind of every country really sees themselves or should see themselves in a kind of right. It derives from us, and then we see everything from our perspective, right? It's only people who've been colonized who now we start seeing things through other people's lens,
okay.
right?
Right,
Right.
right,
So
right.
Japan, even though they've been conquered, even though the atrocities of World War II, which I go over in detail in the 21st Century Japan Decoded, they have been able to retain their own self, like the identity and awareness, because of the insular nature of their society and the geographical positioning as well. But
Oh,
yeah. So there's positives to that, and there are negatives.
right.
And one of the positives for a black person, again, I alluded earlier, is that they don't necessarily see you. They don't know of a lot of thug stuff, right?
Okay.
Unless you come there and display it, right?
Okay.
So a lot of times, if you come as a black person, they'll think all black people are like you.
Oh,
Yeah, a lot of times you get to set the tone. You know what I'm saying? Like
okay.
you never have to even really go through like a silly conversation about any silliness, like, do you have drugs? They might not even think that.
Wow.
I'm not saying
Well,
all the time.
yeah, but
Yeah,
that's the positive
right.
of
That's the positive.
the
Like I remember,
positive side.
like for example, Trayvon Martin. Nobody I knew even heard about that.
Okay.
Right. I'm not saying that that's good. I'm just saying just how big of a story it was.
Right
Right.
here in
Remember
the
how,
United
yeah, how
States,
around the
around
world,
the
it was
world, but
huge.
not in Japan.
Yeah, and people, because I was bringing it up as a topic and nobody knew. And so finally I stopped doing it because I was like, well, why am I going to introduce this trauma? Usually I'm thinking
Right,
I'm going to try to explain it. I'm like, well, if you
right,
don't even know about it, I'm not going to introduce this. This is what happens to black people, but
right.
if George Floyd, more people knew about that. So then I found
Yeah,
myself responding to questions. But yeah, if you don't know, I don't want you to have that image. And let me show you some of these people that invented some stuff, you
exactly,
know,
exactly, exactly. Wow. So, Taikuan, I like for you to, I have all different kinds of viewers.
great.
And what overall message would you like to give the viewers?
Um, Overall message.
Yeah.
I guess I think I kind of already said it as far as the series of miracles that we're all experiencing. You shouldn't really take anything for granted. And I know it's very cliche and it's hard to do, on a consistent basis. But yeah, we all are here for our own, unique mission. And it's only until you tap into those series of miracles that it becomes revealed for you. right? So even like you asking me about why why I came to Japan, and I really didn't. Japan kind of claimed me when I came, just because again the things that were happening on the ground, right? And again, oh, and another thing about Japan, which really is great, I think, is because especially as a Black person, you don't get harassed by the police, number one, right? So, and there's really very low physical danger. I'm not saying it's not dangerous, because Japanese will say it's a very safe country. No, and I go against that. There's physical danger, there's mental health, physical health, right? Spiritual health. There's different levels of danger. So from a physical level, getting mugged, murdered, or even raped, there's a little problem with women getting fondled and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to, say that
Yeah,
that's not big, but
yeah,
but for me as a writer, like, I go outside and sometimes I get writer's block and I just want to go for a walk or something. And I can be in my thoughts. When I'm an American, I do that same thing. And I'm walking out looking around like, okay, like, okay, who's he? Okay, well, what's going on here? Make sure, like,
unfortunately.
yeah, and I again, I'm not trying to throw shade. I love my people in America. America, and that's my roots are there, and FBA, all that, and I need to get back, and I'm trying to make ways that can find me in both places. I really, this is part of me trying to link up with, Asada Kirkland and the people doing the book fair.
Yes,
But
and
yeah,
for
but
people who
it's a
don't
safe
know,
space. Mm-hmm.
for people who don't know, there is the metaverse and the Chicago Soulful Book
Yeah.
Fair.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to chicagosoulfulbookfair.com, you will find out all about the metaverse. You can create an avatar. You can meet Takuan Amaru in the
Or
metaverse.
Dr. Jan, that's where
And
we met each other.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's right, in the metaverse. So that's something new. You used to talk about the metaverse, like what the heck is that?
Yeah.
But Taekwondo, it's really great to really see you. Well, not in person, but to see you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Real
Outside the avatar. Yep. And I feel
right.
the same. Thank
And
you.
if people want to get in contact with you, and I'm telling you, people, you need to go to his page, and that is Taka. Okay, say it.
Takuan Amaru.
TakuanAmaru.com, and you
Mm-hmm.
will see all about who he is and his messages, his other books, and you're fascinated, actually.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you
You're
very much.
fascinated. And I really want to thank you for being my guest.
The pleasure is mine.
And I'm like all these questions in my mind, and it seems like an hour goes by so fast. And Renita says, thank you for sharing your story. Oh, wow. She'll be visiting Japan later this year as
Sister
an
Renita,
admiral.
welcome.
I often wonder how I am perceived in other countries. Renita, girl, you need to look him up.
Yep, please come. Come down. We have a whole Real Talk family. Shout out to my man Sterling Carroll. We have a Real Talk. We call it Real Talk, a forum. We have a bunch of people there. A lot of them are Black Japanese, or people who are interested in thing matters Black. You know what I'm saying? And happens in Osaka, which is the second biggest city. I'm in Nagoya, which is the third or fourth largest, but I oftentimes go to Osaka. That's more where my family is from as well.
All righty. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. So Renita, look him up, girl.
Yep.
So
And they see you as a goddess. They see you as a goddess. I know sisters who come, and the Japanese women, they try to copy you and stuff like that. Yeah, it's kind of, yeah. So bring out your get stacked and wear your stuff, because they're gonna be checking you out. Trust me.
all right.
They want to feed from the source.
All right. So Takuan, you have a blessed rest of your day. Thank you
You as
so
well,
much.
Dr. J.
Thank
Thank
you
you for having
so
me
much. I
on.
really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Wow, this was really great. It's so informational, and honestly, you really need, I'm leaving this here so you can see how you can reach him. You need to go to his website. Not his, I'm sorry, not his, well, yeah, it is his website. But anyway, I'm going to leave this up as I go off so you can write it down just in case, just in case. But I will see you next week. Actually, next week will be an encore. And what I'm going to do is just choose one of the guests. It might be you, uh, Mr. Amaru, because it was so interesting. Because I'll be off on a journey. So everyone, have a beautiful, blessed rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening. Bye bye. And I'm still here. This happens every now and then. So I had my closing. Oh, there it is. Okay, now I'm gone. See ya.